Welcome back to another episode of Thinking That Matters. I'm your host, Elizabeth Mahusai, and I am here with my good friend, new friend, Theo Ammons. And I am so excited for you to learn about him, to know about him. So Theo, tell us a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, so that our audience knows about you.
Right. Thank you, Elizabeth. And good morning to everyone else. My entire professional career has been around leadership and people development. I've spent a lot of time working for various companies and leading large teams and making them highly functional teams. I also own a business. It's in real estate. But my passion is really around the leadership, development of people, and helping people understand the responsibility around that task.
I love that. And you said leadership, people development. So, different people might have different ideas around what does it mean to be someone who develops people. Tell me more about what people development means to you.
Yeah, to me, the development of people is to help people grow from one point to another and always understand that different people are at different stages of growth. Understand what it takes to get them through different phases of growth. And also understand that it's not a destination point. It is truly something that you're going to do for the rest of your life if you're really serious about this.
I love that it's not a destination, right? Mm-hmm. We often hear it's not so much about the destination, but about who we're becoming on the journey of where we're wanting to go. And I heard that as you were talking about stages of growth, phases of growth, and helping people to get there. Now, for you, when you think about, because you do have this passion around people development, where do you believe that passion grew, or from where did that passion grow for leadership and people development?
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So if you look, I'm the eldest child, and I've always kind of been responsible for those behind me. And, I was taught by those who mentored me. So they imparted in me just this structure around who you should be, what it means to step up and lead. And that was more around a family orientation. And it was just something that was kind of natural to me. Even my first job, I was working as a kid at McDonald's, like most kids did. And within 2 months of being there, I was leading a grill crew. I was 16 years old. These guys were faster than I was. They were better at their jobs, but somewhere in there, they would follow me. And I took that as such a huge step, right, in making sure that I'm always going to stand and deliver for these guys that follow me. So that's when I became really passionate about it. I went to college, got an operations management degree.
Ah, okay.
And that's where I really started to focus on continuous process improvement. But I had to also develop a team as I was doing that, because it wasn't just me. It was developing a team we had to deliver. And I became a real student of leadership. Even going back to the Peter Drucker days, Stephen Covey days.
Oh,
right?
Yes. 7 highly effective ways. Yeah, the 7 effective ways are.
First to understand, then be understood.
Yes, that's right. I know. Okay. All right. I was smiling while you were saying that, because do you know what my first job was?
What's that?
McDonald's. And within, I don't know, a very short period of time, I was a crew trainer.
Yeah.
I became a crew trainer. Yep. And so you said that, and I was like, oh, my word. It's one more thing that we, where there's a similarity between the two of us.
Well, when you talk about us being new friends, remember, we're so aligned. We're almost twinsies, right?
I know. It's like, a brother from another mother, as they say, right? I know. And just so for the benefit of those of you listening and watching, Theo and I are a part of Leadership McKinney together. Right. And on our last, earlier in September, we were having a conversation before our day started. And we went deep about leadership and just different aspects of it. And I immediately said, you need to be a guest on my podcast, because we're going to have great conversation around this. So I'm so thankful that you said yes. All right. You talked about being passionate about leadership, about people development. I would, I maybe I'm assuming that we might be similar in age, but my point is, if you're talking about Peter Drucker and Stephen Covey, I mean
That's how long
been a
I've
little
been
bit.
investing. Yeah, that's how long I've been investing.
That's been a little bit.
Now, I have more current ones as well, but it goes back to those days.
But those were excellent foundational works, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember first hearing about Stephen Covey and reading his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, right? And how that impacted me and the desire to be effective, as a person, and having a Stephen Covey planner and, like all the things, right? So what I would like is when you think about, let's stick on that for a moment, beyond Peter Drucker, Stephen Covey, who have been authors or thought leaders in this space of leadership, people development that have really impacted you over the decades?
John Maxwell.
Yes,
you had to, if you're leading people, if you're trying to understand how to motivate, that would definitely be a person. But I read those books and I go to professional seminars, but I have just had really good mentors too. The one thing I think that we're missing in this society is we take a lot of time separating, right? Like, oh, if you're Gen Z, you're this, and if you're Gen X, you're this, and if you're still people.
So true.
And we always need to find a reason to separate. But here's the thing that I know about leading people. People want clear expectations. They want you to do what you say you're going to do. They want those basic connectivity things. And if you can do that, I don't care who you're talking to. You can talk to Gen X, you can talk to millennial, you can talk to whatever the newest
baby boomers.
It doesn't matter.
I love that observation that we tend as a culture to want to separate.
Yeah.
And leading, though, is about bringing together.
There you go.
It is about creating connections regardless of the generation label that has been slapped on you.
Right.
Or age, or any of those aspects. So I love that. So because I too have been very much impacted by mentors.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big reader. I'm grateful for books and the things that we can learn from them. But I do appreciate you bringing up that you feel like. Do you mean to say that you feel like mentoring is not as important as it needs to be, or it's somehow kind of gone by the wayside? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so mentoring is very important. I think a lot of times we don't have enough good mentors. We don't have enough people looking to be mentored. I think they just try to go at it alone, and you cannot do that because we all have different perspectives. We all have different experiences. So I think if you can find yourself a really good mentor, it makes a world of difference. We also are in this society where you can kind of Google everything, right? You just look it up, you Google it, and you can read on it, and you think now you're the subject matter expert because you know a couple of words. That's not replaced by experiences. And experiences is what makes the difference.
That is so valuable. Google does not make one an expert.
It does not. It does not.
Well, because I think it's worth highlighting the difference between knowledge and wisdom.
That's true.
Right? Google can give us a lot of knowledge. We can become very knowledgeable. The same thing on YouTube as well, right? YouTube can give us knowledge, but wisdom comes typically experientially,
sure.
Right? We've lived that out. We've tried those principles. We've learned, we've failed, we've succeeded. And that's where wisdom becomes invaluable. And mentors are sharing wisdom.
Yeah. Because I'll tell you what, you can take that knowledge, but you can be forced to be in a situation. And if you haven't had practical application of said knowledge, you will fail because you have to have that experience.
Yeah, I love that practical. How did you just say that?
Application.
Practical application of the knowledge.
Yes.
And that's not to say that people cannot gain some practical application if they're willing to put into practice the things that they pick up on a YouTube or they hear or they Google search where that's concerned. But I mean, it's the same reason why I'm sure doctors, want to caution people on going to the WebMD,
Right.
And hearing all or seeing all of these symptoms and assuming they can properly diagnose, because a doctor has the experience of how symptoms present themselves and different other factors that go into play. So I think that's incredibly valuable. Just because we can Google everything doesn't mean that we have the wisdom to actually implement or apply it.
And I'm going to add this to it as well. Now, I'm not a person who's like, don't Google and don't use your resources.
Agreed.
Right?
Agreed. I'm there with you.
Because it's great to have
Yes.
that knowledge. But I've been here long enough to been in that phase where you had to learn things yourself and you had to retain it. It wasn't just as easy as picking up your cell phone and looking it up. So, but everything has to have a balance. So you can have Google and use it as a resource, put it in your toolkit, but you still have to have that practical application, that practical knowledge and practical use of whatever it is.
All right, so let's kind of turn that into this leadership space where we started, which is as someone who has really, you're very passionate about leadership. You've spent a lot of time developing people, which means you're leading people, right, to develop them.
Right.
If the person listening, let's say they're leading, they're trying to develop people, they need to help them gain the practical application. What are some tips you would give a leader watching or listening in how they could more effectively do that?
So I'll take it from the sense of development, right? So you need to really get to know the people that you're leading. I think we're in this society now where things are litigious and you really don't want to spend the time because you don't know what's going to happen. So everything is kind of a script. But when you really want to connect with people, I would tell people, you can have a one-on-one with people and that helps them to do better at a task. But when you're developing a person, you're connecting with their heart, their ideas, something that's going to be special to them. So going back to your question, if we just really spent time to really know what a person's interest was, what their passion was, even kind of going back to what you and I learned about Clifton's strengths, right? What are their strengths? That helps in their development because if that's something there that they're going to take and they're going to build upon it.
I like that. So I also like how you differentiated that a one-to-one could help someone develop to do a task.
Just task or skill, yeah.
Right, but connection is deeper.
Yeah.
Connection is personal.
Right.
Connection means that I know you for more than just the task you complete in the movement of the business or the product or service, et cetera.
Sure.
I like that. So first tip you gave is you need to get to know your people. Now, once a leader takes and there are many ways that they can get to know their people. I agree, Clifton Strengths is a great way to know that there's so many potential assessments and things like that. But I know that both you and I would both agree we would not underestimate just the value of time.
Yeah, spending time and knowing, right, and showing that you care. Because once you show you care, they'll show they care. That's just basic.
It is, but how easily we have gotten away from that.
Sure.
I mean, to me, there's a difference in, for example, emailing something and picking up the phone to communicate you care.
Sure.
Right? Sure. So again, it's just reminding ourselves that if we want deeper connection as leaders, we need to spend the time necessary to connect and to get to know those people.
Because we've all had, not to interrupt you, we've all had people that we worked for that we would honestly just run through a brick wall for them. Or we've just had people that we worked for. They were just people that you were accountable to, but you've always had that special person. And you know what? You would work extra, you would work harder, you would do everything in your power because that person was motivational to you, they were inspirational to you. That's because they connected with you on a level.
Yeah, that's so true. So once a leader takes the time to get to know, like to connect at a deeper level, what would you say would be a good next step for them in people development?
Figuring out where the person wants to go, right? So then you can start to put together a path for them. And you can get them exposure to different things, like different events, different projects, different things along those lines that would align with what they want to accomplish, and it would also help them grow and also keep their interest level as well.
There's so many things that you just said right there that are so significant.
I think that that's part of it, right? People don't understand how truly detailed leadership is, especially if you're really passionate about it, because you're talking about really taking a person and being responsible for an outcome, for their growth. And it's just so many levels to it. And that's why now when I look across the, I guess I'll say the platform, right? There are many people walking around with a title, and a title gets extra pay, and that's great. But do you really understand the responsibility that you have if you're talking about being a really good leader? The investment in yourself, the investment in others. So there's a lot of steps to this.
So true. I think about, as you were saying, okay, there's so much to mine out of these two things you've just said. Okay, so let me go back to figuring out where they are, where they want to go, exposing them to opportunities. And I love that you said that are in alignment with who they are. What? Because you've taken time to connect with them. And you've taken time to know where they want to go.
Right.
So as a mentor or as a leader, you're curating opportunity for them that you believe will assist them in their growth.
There you go.
And now I want to connect that to you were saying that there are a lot of people now that they have titles, but are they actually leading? I just spoke with someone today who came in, they're newer in their industry, and no sales experience at all, and was basically shown the office desk with the phone and said, make calls. With no prior experience, no real direction. And I think that part of what we're seeing right now is that have we in our society where we tend to want to separate people and things, have we separated the title of leader from the responsibilities of leading, and it's created this gap? Tell me what you think about that.
Now, that's a loaded question. You talk about my responses, but yeah, creating the separation of the two and not investing as well. I think you and I came up during a time where people invested in training. They invested in leadership. They poured into you. Now things are moving so quickly. We just want somebody that's already ready-made. We can slap a title on them and they just keep it moving. And I don't think that that's the way that you really help develop someone. Think about how uncomfortable you're making that person. Think about what a real leader has to do to develop people. Think about the tough conversations that you have to have. People don't like to have those conversations. I've actually talked to leaders that they felt like they had to, I don't know if I can say it, but almost had to go throw up before talking to someone because they couldn't handle those conversations. But they had to go through it. So think about how poor that conversation probably went, because that leader couldn't handle it, so they were rushing through it. The person who was receiving information didn't get good information. That was a failed opportunity. But that leader has not been trained, has not been put in the right position. And that's the piece that, it's almost, for someone who's a student of leadership, you can look at things that are happening now with leaders, and you almost feel bad that they're in that position.
Well, because are we setting them up for failure?
Right.
Or are we setting them up for success? I mean, interesting to connect, what you said about we live in this Google everything society. I think in some cases, organizations are dropping people into leadership roles and thinking, well, if you don't know, Google it. Or if you don't know, read a book on it.
Right.
And, even thinking about what you said about people throwing up before trying to have a hard conversation, I can say to a client, read Crucial Conversations, right? And Crucial Conversations is an excellent book for how to have tough conversations. It is very technical, and people can tend to, I don't want to say get lost, but they can feel overwhelmed by trying to manage all of the different aspects of having a crucial conversation. But it doesn't replace being able to sit with someone and go, this book recommends that I say, do, follow this. What has worked for you?
Right.
What have you found successful? What have you found doesn't work well?
Right.
I think that's the part where the mentoring, or, in my space, we differentiate between mentors and coaches, right? Mentor being someone that you have a connection and they're willing to invest time, but you're not paying for that time necessarily, right? A coach, you're paying for that time. Both can serve amazing benefit to an individual. But I think it does go back to what you were saying about the value of mentorship, people who have lived life.
Right.
So this gap between we have a title and the responsibility, and you mentioned not investing in people. When you think about developing people and investing to develop, what would you say for the leader listening are things you would recommend that are worth the investment to develop people?
So you're talking in terms of maybe training, and so training is like the start of it, right? You have to be able to train. First of all, you have to be able to identify people with talent. That's the first thing. Because that'll make your life a lot easier if you do.
That's so true. We could have a whole nother conversation just around that. But because, I think a lot of leaders struggle with that.
Right.
So I'm going to put a pin in that.
Okay.
Because I think we could have another podcast episode around identifying people with talent.
Right.
All right. So, but first we have to identify people with talent. Keep going.
Identify people with talent. And then you want to train those people. And you want to train them, you want to expose them to a little bit. Don't just dump them in the deep end of the pool, right? You have to help them grow. They don't just wake up and one day they're a baby and the next day they're 18. They have some stages in between that. And that's the part of training and coaching. And get them with, like you say, a really good mentor. And that mentor is going to spend time. So that coach is going to sit down and kind of walk over the how-tos. That mentor is going to be the person that's going to connect with them on the, hey, this is what I know. Let me just kind of be very, very honest with you on my experiences. Not the how-to around it, but this is what I've dealt with. I've planned out every conversation and got in the room and was talking to somebody and it went a whole different direction. Think about these things when you're planning
when
your
that
conversation.
happens.
That's right.
It's interesting the way you're verbalizing that mentors, I think often are not that they have to be industry specific,
right?
But I think there's a great deal of value when they are industry specific because they are going to be able to speak to more specifically what a person in that industry is going to encounter.
Right.
How they've dealt with it, what they've learned from it, and so they can really speak to that. Whereas a coach, you and I both know, whether it's sales or leadership, there are certain principles, no matter your industry, there are certain skill sets, no matter your industry, that are going to be applicable, and that can, when applied well, are going to bring success.
Yes,
I think that's a great differentiator. There. And what I'm hearing you say is that part of how a leader invests in people development is they're paving a way for, in this case, being exposed to coaches, mentors, to develop that for them. I love that. How right now, since you're so passionate about leading, how right now are you engaged in leadership?
So I'm engaged in leadership right now through Service First Initiatives.
Okay.
So it's a nonprofit. In this nonprofit, we help mentor young men 8 to 18, which is really, really cool, right? Because you're now catching these guys at a really young age. You're teaching them kind of critical thinking, how to look at things, how to be a good person as well, right? And because you have to think about it, in that age group, 8 to 18, you have the 8-year-olds looking up to the 12-year-olds, the 12-year-olds looking up to the 15-year-olds, the 15-year-olds looking up to the 18-year-olds, and all of them have various levels of responsibility. So you have someone that's kind of holding you accountable. So really, really great to mentor them and to just see them change over time. So I'm spending a lot of time there at this point. And also I'll go speak every now and again. Different people call me and want a perspective and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go back to service first, because I'm a mom of two boys, right? They're 22 and 24 now.
Okay.
And what you just said is so true
Right.
about, the progression of looking up to, and you're really trying to lead these young men towards in a great path,
Right.
right?
Right.
Not that they're not on a good path, but that you want them to grow in the midst of that. What would you say are some of the biggest opportunities in that age range for people development?
To try to give them different aspects of how they approach things and how they think about things. And also kind of give them that courage and strength to stand up and kind of stand alone for what you know is the right thing to do. Because there are a lot of people that have different perspectives about things. That's a vulnerable age for these kids.
Mm-hmm.
So to give them confidence that, hey, you know what, you're on the right track. You're doing the right thing. I think that means the world to them, because we all need confidence as we kind of move through life, right? And that doesn't stop at 18. That doesn't stop at 50. It doesn't stop at... There will be times in your life that your confidence will be shaken. So to be able to understand strength around that, to be able to understand some faith around that, that means a lot.
That is so true, and I think it is so. I think it is so needed. I mean, in a time where, when we think about when we were kids, and and even now with the fast-paced nature of our world, and also let's keep in mind that these 8 to 18-year-olds can Google everything.
Everything, yeah.
And they may believe something or try to pursue something apart from experiential wisdom around something that they've Googled. So I think having a mentor to really, I love that you said the approach, the thinking, you're just really helping them to set a foundation where that is concerned. That's so good. And you talked about the faith aspect. For you, I would love for you to share how faith has been part of your journey, your own personal and professional development.
So I am a person of faith, and I think people have to understand, when you're dealing with faith and you're a leader, you also have to be replenished as a person yourself. I think my own personal life, I've always known that God had touched me. I would walk into boardrooms, I would do presentations. I didn't even know sometimes what I was going to say, even though in my mind I had played it over what I was going to say and how I wanted to present. But when I got ready to speak, it went much better than I ever thought it would go. And I would always say a small prayer before every time I interacted, right? God, guide my tongue, provide me wisdom. And I would say it to myself, and I would just be thinking through, but things would work out so much better. And I knew, I could feel it, that God had touched me, was in control of my life and my actions. And you think about being a leader. When you're a leader, you have the responsibility of others. But who are you going to make sure that you are replenished? Because you have to be in a good space as well to lead. So I don't want to go too far, because I myself may get a little bit emotional, but I've just always known that, and that's kind of been how I've utilized my faith. But, I always refer back to Jeremiah 29:11. And I'm not a preacher, but I do know what I like. And, for I know the plans I have for you, plans for you to prosper, plans not to harm you. What a covenant. I mean, that right there just answered all of your questions. So you're going to be okay. So that's kind of my piece on it.
I love that. And, in that same spot of Jeremiah 29, it says, if you seek me, you will find me.
That's right.
And, that aspect of, if you're watching, listening, and you're a faith-led entrepreneur, faith-led leader, this concept that Theo is talking about of replenishment is incredibly important.
Sure.
Because, proverbially they say you can't give from an empty cup.
True.
And I think oftentimes as leaders, we're already bone dry and we keep trying to give, and then we wonder why we get frustrated.
Right.
We lack patience. And when we get into those spaces, I believe our fulfillment of our leadership responsibilities suffers as a result. And I know for me, I mean, I end up saying things I wish I hadn't said, or I demonstrate behavior of that. I'm like, I really wish I hadn't have done that or had that body language, or, I'm just less aware of all of those. Why? Because in many ways we move into survival mode.
Right.
And that truly impacts us as a leader.
But you know what? It also gets back to a good leader is a humble person, to me, by nature. I mean, you're going to wear different hats. You have to be different things at different times. But if you have a good sense of humility and you're a grounded person, it's much easier to lead. So that's another part of the faith for me.
All right. So I want to dig into that a moment. Humble, grounded. Tell me more. That could be an example. It could be a story, but connect that for the listening, viewing audience of the value of humility and groundedness as it relates to being a good leader.
So I could probably go into this for a while, but I think I'll just touch on, if you're going to connect with people, people have to know that you are someone that they can touch, feel, understand. And what I mean by that is,
they can relate to you.
They can relate to you.
Yes.
You have to be relatable. So it allows people to want to connect with you, because none of us want to connect with the know-it-all. We don't want to connect with the person that, you can't tell them anything. Because I'll tell you something, even with this mentor group, you'd be amazed how much I learned from these young kids that are 8 to 18, because I approach them differently. I'm like, you know what? Mr. Theo has this to say, but I also want to know your perspective. And the things that they say are just incredible. But if I didn't have humility about me, and it's like, well, I'm the oldest and I'm going to go in and do what I...
Yes.
Look, those kids would turn away in a heartbeat. Anybody working for you would turn away in a heartbeat. And you just have to think about your presence and how you are.
Well, I can affirm everything that you just said, because my own personal testimony is that I came into adulthood as a know-it-all. Now, I didn't wake up every morning thinking, I'm going to show everyone how much I know. It is a limiting belief I had created for myself that unless I acted, presented as though I had it all together, had all the answers, people wouldn't respect me, they wouldn't follow me. And that limiting belief created a facade, a very well-crafted facade, I might say, that made it difficult for people to relate to me. And where that really showed up is when I got more into the business world, the sales world, and I started hearing, you're so intimidating. Why? Because to your point, people need to know they can touch, they can relate to who you are. And we all intuitively know we're imperfect. Right. And so it's very difficult to relate to someone who projects perfection.
Right.
Whether it's true or not is irrelevant.
Yeah. You know what? That's a great point. And thank you for sharing a vulnerable moment, right? Because I've been there as well. Because what you have to think about now is you don't want to excuse confidence, because you have to exude confidence as well. So
yes.
You can be humble, but you can be confident as well. And we've all had that, because, being a female, you may not be in some of these circles, you really can't be seen as, I don't want to use the word weak, but less than, if you will.
I'm okay with weak.
Yeah.
Do you know what's interesting? I think I so appreciate that you, without directly saying it, but we're connecting confidence to humility.
Right.
It shows great confidence when one can humbly say, you know what, I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know the answer.
But I'm willing to find out, as an example.
Right.
Or to be able to be confident enough to go, I just totally messed that up. Please forgive me. That's confidence.
Right.
to be humble. And so my point is, I believe we can actually be incredibly confident and exude humility side by side.
Sure.
When we have the proper perspective around it. Oh, man, I love that. We're definitely going to have many other conversations about that. I do know that we need to wrap it up, though. And so I ask every guest that I have on the show why you believe it's important to cultivate thinking that matters. How would you respond?
You know, we live in a society where you have so much information at your fingertips. And I love thinking that matters. I really love what that says, but also it's the thoughts that matter too. So you think about, you read everything, some information for good, some information is not for good, some builds you up, a lot tears you down, but you have to be able to think through and decipher through what's going to be best for you, what's going to help you to remain as positive as you can. Because what I do know is positive people tend to perform better than negative people. That's or non-positive people, right?
Right.
So what are you feeding into yourself? What do you think about that keeps you positive, that keeps you wanting to wake up every day and thrive and strive to be the best person you could be? So you have to have your own thoughts. You have to develop your own thoughts. You have to invest in yourself. Because something I learned a long time ago, someone told me, a mentor actually, he said, no one will ever tell you, teach you, or train you everything that you need to know. So you're going to have to get up and invest in yourself. So it's really around the thoughts and teaching yourself to think and decipher between what's good and what's not good so that you can keep yourself, your motor running positively like it should.
Oh, so good. You need to write a book. I'm just saying. I'm gonna declare it audibly that you need to write a book because you got so many nuggets of wisdom in that brain of yours. No one will ever tell you, teach you, or train you everything you need to know.
That is correct.
As a speaker, I like multiple words that all start with the same letter. I mean, like that'll preach right there. I mean, you could have a whole lesson around tell, teach, train,
right.
And the value of that. Man, I so appreciate you, Theo, the background that you bring, the wisdom that you have. I would love for you to share with the audience how they can support the nonprofit Service First Initiative and also how they can connect with you.
Okay. So, Service First Initiatives, you can contact us at www.servicefirstinitiatives.org. I'll call on all the golfers. We're having our first annual golf tournament, so we could raise money for scholarships. That's going to be the end of October, I think October 26th, but it's all on the website.
Okay.
If you want to, you can go look up our website. You can donate on our website. We would really, really appreciate it. It all goes to a worthy cause and helping these kids. If you want to contact me, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook. Need to update a couple of things there. And you could contact me at AmmonsTD70 at Gmail, Theo_Ammons at Yahoo.
Okay,
yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Theo. I so appreciate you. Have so much respect for, again, the applied knowledge that allows you to have the wisdom that you do. And I will most certainly look forward to having you back on the podcast. Thank you all for listening and for watching. I'm Elizabeth Mahusai signing off for another episode of Thinking That Matters.